everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my May reading wrap up. Yes, I am sitting here in my pajamas today. It is so cold and honestly I do not want to get changed, so I figured why not just be comfy in this video. I literally got them yesterday from Kmart and they're the comfiest, cutest PJs ever, so I just do not want to take them off, to be honest. Also, I have left this quite late in the day to film and it is already very gloomy today because we are now in winter in Australia, and so I am using a new, I don't want to call it a ring light, but it is like a studio light. I used to have a ring light that I've literally had for probably 5+ years and I've been using it the whole entire time whenever I need that extra lighting, and today's a perfect day for that. I actually got sent 2 of these studio lights from a brand called Neewer, I believe you pronounce it. I've been using their stuff for years, so I was so excited that they were going to send me these. I'll include like a little recording of the little setup on my phone. I've got 2 of them, but I'm only using one of them because that's truly all I need. It is so bright and it also has 2 different settings. There is a kind of like white light and then there is like a more orangey toned light that you can have on as well, which is nice. I really like this as well, but I prefer more of the studio light sort of vibe. And Neewer has also very kindly given me a discount code to share with you guys, which I will put on the screen. As I said, I've been using their products for such a long time. My 5-year-old ring light, which I've now put away because it's a lot bigger than these and these are much easier and more portable to use, was also from them. So literally love them, cannot recommend them enough. So thank you for sending me these new items to try. Literally the perfect day to use them because it is so dark outside. But with all that being said, let's get straight into the wrap up and talk about the statistics I always go through at the start of my wrap up videos. To start off, I read a total of 14 books in May. I had 2 DNFs in the month, which was Misery by Stephen King. I just found it very difficult to get through. I think I got about 40% of the way through and I was just confused. I had no idea what was going on. It kind of felt like we'd already been told the whole story, and so I just really didn't want to continue that. And also Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy. I feel like I read this ages ago. Like May feels like such a long month now that I think about it, but I DNF'd this one because we were like quite a few chapters in and I couldn't even tell who the love interest was because the girl in the book who went to study abroad and ended up living with all these males, I couldn't even tell who she wanted because she seemed to be into all of them. So I just didn't really want to read that. Out of the 14 books I read a total of 4,886 pages. My average rating for these books was 3.93 stars. And now onto the genres of the books that I read. I read 6 romance books. This was a very heavy romance book month, which is surprising because there was a while where I didn't really read as much. 5 thrillers, which that's normal for me. 1 more sort of like general fiction. I'm gonna say it's like more magical realism, but I'll talk about that later. And then 2 fantasy books. So now that we've gone through all of that, let's just get straight into the books in absolutely no particular order. Starting off with a new release that I read this month. I believe this book is out or coming out very soon. We have Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. To start off, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I'm not going to lie, this was quite a disappointing read to me and I sort of went into it expecting that might happen because it didn't really seem like something that I would love, that would necessarily be up my alley, and I was definitely right with that. This one is, it's kind of hard to explain because I feel like Ashley Poston's books have that underlying magical realism sort of vibe as well, but this is more on the romance side. This was following a girl called Joni and she creates music for artists. So she's like a songwriter, but she's kind of in like a writing rut at this moment in the book and she doesn't really have enough feelings to write a book. Like she's just very stuck. And one day she hears this very aggravating voice in her head. I'm like picturing that TikTok trend of that audio, but anyway, she hears this very aggravating male voice in her head and also a song melody that goes along with it. And they end up trying to figure out who each other are because they're like kind of speaking to each other in their heads. They're hearing each other's thoughts and they're both hearing this particular part of a song. And when they find each other, they decide that they have to finish this song and create this song together in order to get rid of each other from each other's minds. I hope that makes sense. It's very hard to explain. I just feel like I was really bored for the majority of this book. I feel like it could have been done a lot better, and I've found that with A Novel Love Story as well, which was Ashley Poston's last release from last year. I haven't enjoyed them as much as I did The 7-Year Slip and The Dead Romantics. They were both like 5-star reads for me, and so her 2 recent releases have unfortunately been a little disappointing, but I would still recommend this if a romance book with like that sort of magical element is of interest to you. This one was unfortunately a little bit of a letdown for me. Next up we have First Time Caller by BK Borison. Now I am actually very pleasantly surprised by this one. on. And I did record my reactions and read this in a vlog, and I did say in that vlog that I was really hoping we would get a book 2 following a specific character, and that's exactly what we're getting. Literally a few days later, it was announced that there's going to be book 2 in this series, and I'm so excited. This is following a romance hotline. It is Baltimore's romance hotline called Heartstrings, which is run by a guy called Aiden Valentine. One day he gets a call on this hotline from a little girl, actually, it's a child, and she's calling because she wants her mum to find love, and she's worried about her mum, and her mum ends up going on the line and talking to Aiden. And because their banter was so good on this phone call, everyone in Baltimore starts asking for her. They want her on the hotline. They want to see her love story unfold. And that's sort of what the plan is going through this book. She goes on this hotline with Aiden. The whole idea is that she is going to go on these dates and hopefully find someone that she falls in love with by the end of it. This was such a cool idea, such a cool dynamic between the characters. I loved it so much. I mainly listened to this one as the audiobook, and it was just so fun to get through. I feel like listening to an audiobook where there's some sort of audio like radio station or podcast or something in the book, it makes it feel so much more real. So I really loved that, and the audio like narrators were perfect as well for this book. So I really loved this. I ended up giving this one 4.25 stars. I would highly recommend. Next up, I read Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, which is the second book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I read Done and Dusted probably getting close to 2 years ago now when it first came out, and didn't really like it that much. I think it was way too spicy for what I expected and what my taste sort of is. I don't really like reading books with spice very often, but I still wanted to continue the series and give this book a go because I've heard that they do get better as they go, and I would definitely agree. I think this book was better than the first one. However, I was still a little bit disappointed by this one. I feel like I really struggled to get through this, even though I think this is either just under or just above 300 pages. Like, it is really not long at all. I feel like it took me a long time to get through this, and I did read it in a 24-hour readathon, which is already up, but I feel like this book really pushed me into a slump, to be honest. I did end up giving it 3.5 stars. Like, it wasn't a bad rating whatsoever, but I do have high hopes for the third and fourth book in this series because I've heard the best things about those two in particular. So I'm definitely still going to finish this series. I feel like you can't go wrong with a cute little small town cowboy romance vibes sort of book. So I think it's perfect, but maybe I just wasn't really in the mood for a book like this, but unfortunately it still was a little bit disappointing. The next one I have is Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. This is one of the thrillers that I read during the month, and I loved this. I feel like this did sort of help me to get back out of my reading slump because this was one of those thrillers that even though nothing that crazy was happening, it's just one of those ones where you have to binge to see what's going to happen at the end and see how it comes together. This is following a girl called Poe. I like always forget characters' names, so I have to look at the back of the book, and she is the host of a popular true crime podcast, and her underlying reason for hosting this podcast is because her mum actually got murdered a few years prior, and the idea of her podcast is that she gets these people on anonymously who actually end up admitting to the crimes, and the whole idea surrounding this book is that someone comes on the podcast one day and tells her that they are her mum's killer. But this is not a spoiler, it's at the back of the book. She knows that is not true because she actually killed her mum's killer. So she's kind of like confused on why this guy is like claiming that, and the whole book is her going through that and sort of investigating him. He's on the podcast with her, and he's just a really strange guy. So that's all I'm gonna say. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. As I said, it was nothing too crazy. I did really enjoy this. I think the ending was a little bit rushed from what I remember. I did read this a couple of weeks ago now. I did still really enjoy this and would highly recommend. Next up, we have The Favourites by Lane Fargo. I was absolutely terrified going into this book, I'm not gonna lie. It was sort of like a 5-star prediction for me. I think I literally read it in my 5-star predictions video, but I also had that underlying inkling sort of feeling in my stomach that I wasn't going to enjoy this because I'd heard people compare this to Daisy Jones and the Six, which is a book that I really did not enjoy. I read that a couple of years ago and just yeah, I hated that book. I hated the main character and the way that that book was set up. But this one, although I do see the resemblance and see why people are making that comparison, this was so much better. I listened to the audiobook for the majority of this one as well. It is such an incredible audiobook with so many different narrators. It just felt so real. And because we are following two famous ice skaters, I think they're more like ice dancers. Like, I don't really know how to explain what they do, but it is like a pair of these two people that have grown up together. It is a boy and girl. It goes through all of their issues growing up. They're kind of growing up in poverty. They can't actually afford to go to these really pristine schools to improve their skating until they end up making it work somehow, and they go to this really rich school, and there is all these people that are just so cruel. They are only in it for themselves. It is just very, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like a high society sort of thing, and they are just like not from that whatsoever, but it is their road from childhood until they become Olympians and everything that follows that as well. And I just think that it is such a beautiful story. You truly cannot explain how much is in this until you read it yourself. I could honestly probably go on and on and on about this book. I ended up giving it 5 stars, but honestly, thinking back, like this would be closer to like a 6-star read for me. Like this is one of those books that I'm going to remember forever. It's one of those books that really, really impacted me while I was reading it. I feel like I felt so many different emotions through reading it as well. This is definitely a book that I would love to reread in the future. Like I think this was so perfect, so beautifully written, and now I want to read absolutely everything from Lane Fargo. The next book I have is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I did read this in a vlog, but that vlog ended up getting scrapped because honestly every book I read in this particular vlog I didn't end up enjoying, so I just decided not to post it. But I honestly am going to really struggle to explain this one. I feel like that's a common thing with Olivia Blake's books. Her writing is very, I don't want to say complicated, it's very beautiful and poetic, but the actual storylines and plot are very hard to explain. So this one is following Viola, who is a real estate agent and also a vampire. And the issue that she's facing in this book is that she is trying to sell this house, but she can't sell it because there is like this ghost that is living there that will not leave. And she doesn't know why he won't leave, but she's also able to like communicate with this ghost. It's like really, really weird. There's like different elements and different kind of like creatures in this book. Like there's ghouls and vampires and a medium. There's a poltergeist, a demonic personal trainer, like just a bunch of different creatures like that. And it was kind of hard to follow along with because we were trying to follow all of their different little like quirks, I guess, and things about them. Honestly, even though I really liked the idea of this, I just really didn't care for the characters. I felt bored throughout quite a lot of it. I just didn't really care for the story as much as I'd hoped to. But yeah, that's unfortunately all I have to say on this one. I gave this one 3 stars. The next one I read, I really, really wish I read this in a reading vlog because this was a 5-star prediction, but I didn't end up including it in that vlog, and I wish I did because this ended up being a 5-star read as well. We have The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This has been a book that has been on my radar for such a long time, and for some reason whenever I tried to purchase it on Amazon, because that was the only place that had it, I could never see it. Like it was just never available in Australia. I think it said it was like coming out or something, even though it was already out, and so it took me a long time to get my hands on this, but literally the second I did, I picked it up, and I'm so glad I did because I loved this. Again, I'm going to try to explain this without spoiling major parts of this story because it's one of those books that you should kind of go into blindly. At least I think. We are following a teacher's aide, which I love because that is a job that I did for 3 years, and although I'm not doing that anymore because I don't really enjoy it that much anymore, I still do enjoy that aspect of it. And the girl in this book, the teacher's aide, she is really, really struggling with money. She's living with a bunch of other people because she's just really trying to make ends meet. At the same time as that, she really wants to adopt this young boy that she works with because he's going through the foster care system and just going through these really horrible things, and she's got like a quite deep connection with him. When this young boy's favorite author who writes children's novels ends up coming out with this like competition, she ends up going into the competition, and basically at the end of this competition, the person who wins will end up winning an unreleased book from his series, and they can do whatever they want with it. They can publish it, they can keep it for themselves, like they can really do anything with it that they want. And so she does go into this hoping to win, and that's all I'm going to tell you. I don't want to explain or over explain too much about this. As I said, it's one of those books that you should go into blindly. I think this was such a beautiful, heartwarming story, and I would truly recommend this book to everyone because it was just so sweet, and I just loved the characters. I literally binged it in one day. Like it was just so easy to read. I'm also getting my mum to read it at the moment, and she's quite enjoying it too, I think. I don't know how far she is into it, but I think she's enjoying it, and yeah, I would recommend this with everything. 5-star read. Another book that I read in May that I absolutely loved, that I'm gonna try to explain the best I can, is The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. I know everyone has kind of read this and spoken about it by now. I was a little late. I did want to read this when it first came out, but I was overseas, so I wasn't able to get my hands on it. I'm so glad that I picked this up when I did because I loved this so much. I think I also binged this in an entire day. Like I think this book was so beautifully written and it goes through so many important topics. This is following Georgia and there is mentions of people from the Magnolia Park series, so I would recommend reading that first, but you don't have to. It just gives more backstory to specific things that happen in this book and specific things that are mentioned. You really don't have to at all. I just think that it would make the experience better if you did. This one is very much following family dynamics and a very toxic family. There is a romance in this book as well, which is a very beautiful, wholesome romance, I think. The more important thing is the battles that Georgia is facing with her family, the internal battles that she is facing as well through the things that she's gone through them currently and in the past. She's got like this really horrible sister as well that just treats her so badly, and she kind of just feels like she's the unwanted one in the family, or she kind of is really. No one really wants her to be there, but the reason they've all had to come together is because their father has passed away, so they kind of have to go there and deal with it and deal with each other. I don't really want to talk about too much because it's, again, one of those books that you have to really go into and experience and read yourself. As I said, this is just such a beautiful story and I'm so excited to see where Jessa Hastings goes with the rest of this. I don't know if it's going to be a series necessarily. I really hope it is. I just really loved this so much. This was another 6-star read, so would highly recommend, obviously. The next one I have is A Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. I ended up rating this one at 3.25 stars. Unfortunately, this was not as good as I was hoping it would be. I feel like for the majority of this book, I wasn't necessarily bored. I just feel like there could have been so much done with this and it really wasn't. The idea of this book is that there is a bunch of girls that are trying to win the prince's heart. There is like this whole thing going on with that. But one thing that happens in this book is that the prince's mum, the queen, she makes these bargains with all of these young girls and the bargains are never good. It will literally be like, I will have like the most beautiful, luscious hair, but in return, I have to give the queen 2 of my fingers. Like it'd be something crazy like that. Yeah, I just feel like there were so many things that could have been done with this. There were so many characters that I feel like didn't have enough development. I don't really know how to explain this, but I just wasn't really satisfied with this book. And so yeah, this was a little bit disappointing as well. Next up, we have Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I also completely forgot that I read this month. As I said, May has just felt so long now that I'm looking back. This was also a 5-star prediction. I had quite a few books in that video. That was actually a really fun video to film. Would highly recommend to go and watch that if you're interested. But I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. This one is following a girl called Lenny whose best friend, who she also lived with, has just passed away and she is struggling. She is going through the whole process of grief in this book. And honestly, she just doesn't really know how to live her life or enjoy her life after this point. And when she ends up babysitting this little girl, she ends up meeting his uncle, I think it was. And the mother of this little girl doesn't like this uncle, but he wants to sort of learn how to communicate with this little girl because he's never really communicated with kids before and he wants to have like a bond with this girl so that her mum also likes him, which is his sister. Is this making sense? This is really hard to explain this dynamic as well. But anyway, they strike up a deal where he is going to help her live life again and deal with her grief, and in return, Lenny is going to help him in making a sort of bonded relationship between him and this little girl that she is babysitting. And I think the idea of this and this story and the dynamic between these characters was also very beautiful. Again, it was just one of those books that was a little bit mundane at points and I just found myself getting really bored, but I did enjoy this nonetheless and would recommend it. It just wasn't as good as I expected it to be. Now onto the 4 books that I do not have physical copies for. First of all, I read 2 books from Frida McFadden that were both new releases this month. So starting off, I read Death Row, which was actually a little novella, and I try to rate novellas in a way that isn't unfair because obviously in a novella you can't really do much with it, but this was honestly incredible. I really enjoyed this novella. It is about a girl who is on death row for murdering her husband, but she says that she hasn't done it, but she does not have an alibi. There is like nothing but proof against her, I guess, that she's done it. But then someone ends up coming to the prison that she is in who looks exactly like her husband that she has supposedly murdered, and we kind of go on from there. Obviously novellas, it's literally 70 pages. I'm looking on Goodreads right now. They never really have much to them, but I actually really enjoyed this one. I think it would really help if you're in a slump. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars, which is a great rating rating again for a novella. I've said it like 6 times now, but I actually really enjoyed this one. Then I read The Tenant, which was also a new release from her. I gave that one 4 stars. This one is following a husband and wife, and at the start of the book, the husband in this book loses his job, and so they kind of don't know what to do with money because they're not really making that much money, and so they decide to rent out a room in their house. They go through the process of having people come in, seeing if they're the right fit, and there were so many weird people until they find a young girl who they think would be the perfect fit, and she moves in with them. Something ends up being really weird about Whitney. The husband in this book thinks that she is doing specific things to sabotage his relationship with his wife. That's all I'm gonna tell you. I really liked this. I did not see the ending coming at all, even though I thought I did. I think I guessed part of the ending of this book, but the like very end, Freida McFadden always twists it again, and you never know what's gonna happen, and that's why I love her book so much. So I would also very highly recommend this one. Then I read The Perfect Girl by Kelly Golden. I believe I read this one just because I saw it on Kindle Unlimited and I was kind of intrigued on this book. I was looking for a book to get me out of a slump, and unfortunately I don't think this one helped. I actually ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. I do not rate books that low very often, but this one unfortunately just needed it. I'm literally looking on Goodreads at the synopsis of this book because I cannot remember a single thing about it, and even reading the synopsis I have no recollection of this book, so I honestly don't really have many thoughts to say on this. All I know is that I didn't like the story. I think it was missing a lot. I think there was like things and like plot holes in the book that I just didn't really understand from what I remember. So yeah, I really did not enjoy this book, to be honest. And then the last book that I read was actually a thriller that I received from NetGalley. It is called The Woman at Number 3. Now this one I feel like you guys should keep on your radar. It is going to be released on the 1st of July. That's what it says on Goodreads at least. This one is following a husband and wife who go to move in this seemingly perfect neighborhood. It is like this massive house. They're like the perfect house for their little family. They do have a little young daughter. And the second they move into this house, all of these crazy things start happening again. That is like the general thing that happens in these thriller books. But one of the things that keeps happening is that their daughter is having these really vivid nightmares, and she wakes up screaming and saying that there is a lady watching her. And at the same time as this, they have some really strange, weird neighbors, specifically this one called Josie in particular. They end up finding out that there was a family that was actually murdered in this house, and that's why they were able to get such a good deal for it. And the wife really wants to sell the house and leave. The husband is kind of like, you wanted to move here more than me. Like, you're stuck here now. Like, we're staying here. I do not want to move again. And he is like set on staying there, even though the wife is really struggling with it all. So they wanted a fresh start, and then they ended up dealing with all of this. So I really liked this. I think it was so well written, so entertaining. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And again, I would highly recommend, especially if you're in a slump, keep it on your radar because it will be out very soon. But that was the last book that I read in May. So hopefully I gave you guys a lot of recommendations in this. I feel like there was a lot of books that I really loved this month and would highly recommend to all of you to read if you have not read them. But yeah, hopefully I will see you all in my next one.